Hey folks, it's Frithgar here, how you doing? Welcome back to Farming Simulator 19 here in Erlengrat. So if you have got the whole tractor mechanic, car mechanic simulator type thing, in this massive online simulator game that combines everything all together so that we don't just have one map here, we have got literally everything all run by servers, and we've got the whole of Europe laid out and you can go and buy all of it. That means that you could have the mechanics in there as well, doing their little bit, fixing up the cars, fixing up tractors. I could take my tractor to the workshop, could buy my own workshop and could do my own work on it, but I know there's people that don't like that gameplay. There's people who find those types of games utterly devastatingly boring. And, well, that's fine. You don't have to enjoy playing those types of games. You get someone else in the game to do it. And then you don't have to do that bit. They do that bit for you. And that would be the joy of it. Sort of, people would then naturally gravitate towards the things that they liked the best. And there would be ways to get the NPCs to do the jobs that the players weren't filling in. So then we move on to trolls. Now, naturally, if you've got a situation like this going on, bad stuff is going to happen. You're going to have the anarchists are going to all come out of the woodwork, and they're going to think, you know what would be really cool? Is if I could just destroy everything. Now, obviously, the first most basic bit where if you can adjust the terrain, like, you know, we could say there's limitations to the amount that you can adjust the terrain, and also you can only adjust terrain on land that you yourself own. So that is going to at least stop terrain adjustments happening in the middle of public highways, because that land wouldn't be able to be owned by anybody, so it could never be adjusted. So there's kind of option one taken care of. Then you've got the issue of people deliberately trying to block the roads, so with vehicles where they just pile them up into the road and then leave them there. If a player leaves a vehicle in a public space for more than 5 minutes, it automatically gets reset back to their own yard. Something like that. You know, you've got to allow a bit of time. If they get stuck, there's got to be a penalty. Players, you know, maybe longer than that. You could have 15 minutes, and then players have got to find a way around it. But the player leaves a vehicle unattended and is still on the server, and they leave it unattended for more than 15 minutes, then there should be a penalty of some kind for it. Although not necessarily a penalty. Actually, there should be a penalty. There should be. If you walk away and you leave your vehicle unattended and you stay online for more than 15 minutes, then the vehicle is removed to either the nearest transport depot or something like that, and then you have to pay a recovery fee in order to get your vehicle back, or it's reset to your own yard and the recovery fee is automatically deducted from your account. Now, if you're 150 miles away from your original home, or 200 kilometers away from your original home, that recovery fee could be quite expensive. It could put you into negative equity. That could be one way of kind of dealing with that. So that when you get the players that go on just in order to start an account and cause like a major road blockage or something like that, just to, you know, for just to become part of Anarchy 99 or something like that, the game has a way of dealing with them, and it doesn't negatively impact other players' gameplay experience for any prolonged period of time. Now, obviously, players are interacting with each other, so you want some kind of realism. If someone has an accident in the road and things start to get piled up, you've got to decide whether you want to try and wait for 15 minutes for the automatic reset of that machine, or if you want to drive round. I mean, it could be longer than that. You could say, well, they've got an hour if they're online. If they go offline and they leave their vehicle in the public space, then 2 or 3 minutes after they go offline, or say 10 minutes after they go offline, it will automatically be removed to the nearest depot, something like that. So you've got a short interval. If you disconnect for whatever reason, it doesn't do it instantly. You can come back. You can continue to try to rescue your own machine if you had a genuine accident. If you get into the cab while you're there working, then that's fine. So the anarchists would eventually get bored, because there would be ways to get round someone trying to block the traffic. They would have to stay online for hours at a time. It would be a lot of work to really properly troll something like that. Then you could say, right, well, what about the anarchists that purchase land right next to the road? They deform the terrain in such a way that it makes it difficult to, drive past or something. Can't deform any terrain that is connected to the road, and say a meter or two along the edge of the road, but then you could just have a strip next to the road you can't buy anyway. So, there would be little ways around that. But what about felling trees onto the road? Now, if we got the same mechanics we have here in Farming Simulator, yes, you could then potentially fell trees, knock them into the road. Right, we've got 19, 13, and 2. Let's go and start with 2 and run that one up there. So we're going to go borrow items there. And we'll leave that tractor going where he is. And we'll go to this one. So what about the people who buy land with a lot of trees next to major roads? Because there's going to be a lot of them. If we've got an accurate map of Europe for our mega online simulator game, there's a lot of major roads that are right next to a lot of trees. So you're gonna have someone that finds a way to dump a load of trees on the road, whether it's cutting a tree on their own land and knocking it onto the road, whether it is someone who loads up a load of logs onto a lorry and then drives it and then unloads them onto the road deliberately in order to block the traffic. What do you do in that situation? Because there could be a genuine mistake where the load, the person falls over, they drive around the corner too fast, and they tip their vehicle on the side. They're stuck. They call their friend, and they have to try and right it back up again. Maybe something falls into the road. Maybe mistakes happen. Things go wrong, and you don't want to kind of penalize that. So initially, I thought, right, well, any objects that touch the surface of any roads automatically disappear. You put bales down on the road, you put logs down on the road, they'll just disappear. You don't get any refunds, no substitutions, exchanges, or refunds. That's it. Game over for that particular item. And that could be, on the face of it, a very simple thing to do. But if you've got your loads loaded on, it's all strapped down. I mean, yes, I definitely think that auto-load trailers should be allowed if you're going to load stuff up. So you can auto-load up a load of logs, you can auto-load up a load of bales, so you've got a nice, straight, clean, easy load. But if you're driving along the road, you're probably going to want all the bale physics, the weight of the load there. So if you go around the corner too fast and the load flops over onto its side, what do you do then? Because, you've just had an accident, it's flopped over onto its side, and suddenly you're not able to, you've got objects that have touched the road. You don't want those just disappearing, because you're in the process of taking your load somewhere, and you want to be able to put it back onto your vehicle and keep going. So you don't want it to just automatically disappear. It could be a good mechanic to have, because it could result in people driving more carefully. If they know the penalty for tipping their vehicle upside down is that anything on the back of their lorry will automatically be assumed to be destroyed and therefore just disappear without any refunds at all, it could potentially encourage better driving. But, I mean, maybe it would be better if an object that lands in the road will stay there for up to 15 minutes and then it will despawn unless it's been picked up. If it's been picked up, or if it's been moved in any way, it will stay there. It will, you know, persist. But if it's stayed still, if it hasn't been interacted with for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that, despawns, it's gone, and that's the end of it. And so then it's out of it. So that, another way of taking care of the trolls. So there would be ways of doing this, I feel. And, I mean, the Euro Truck Simulator is the online gameplay for that. I believe they've got some fairly good methods of dealing with the people that turn up just to try and troll the other drivers. They are quite strict with that on that game, I believe. I don't know, though. I don't know how good it is, and I haven't actually seen it in action for myself. So I'm not... Actually, I want to start from this side just for now. I want to do one line down through, and I want to do a bit down the other end. So I don't know just how good it is, but I'm under the impression that it is pretty reasonable. Now, let me just bring that one down there like that. Do a run up through here. So that's kind of the big online mega simulator that I would like to see. Now, there's people that really love the game Gold Rush, and obviously if you've got farming simulator mixed with ETS, and you've got the mechanic simulation going on as well, so you've got people who can repair cars, tractors, farm implements, the lorries, and so on. You've got people that can do body shops and do the body work on various lorries and stuff, do paint jobs and stuff like that. So it could be another specialized industry, not just kind of like a little bit on the side, but they've actually got to spend quite a bit of time and effort doing it. You know, you're building up a simulation universe here that could be quite impressive. It would require a number of the companies that make all these various games to work together in order to achieve such a thing. Whether or not something like this would ever happen, I don't know. I suspect that it would. I suspect that eventually something like this could happen, because you've got all these individual games, and a lot of them are going more for a constantly updating world persistence. Like World of Warcraft has been going for a long time now. EVE Online has been going on for a very, very long time now. And you've got others as well, like ETS2. They've already said they brought out American Truck Simulator for the US audience, but they have no intentions, or they did say, that may have changed. I don't really keep up to date with the news in that game. But they did say that they had no intention of doing an ETS3. At no point were they planning on releasing an ETS3 game, ever. They were just going to keep updating the ETS2 and just keep running with that one. So if that's the case, they will slowly just keep just keep improving the world that they've got there, and it'll slowly get better and better and better and better. How have you finished? I'll be honest with you, mate. You don't look like you've finished very much, to be honest. You know, it's just kind of, the game is just going to keep improving, and things are just going to get better on it. And as these improvements keep going, you're going to start to see more little extra elements of gameplay being brought in, and, you know, a little bit more available on, and you're, I don't know what you think you're trying to do, but it's wrong. So yeah, I have talked about this before. I don't think I've talked about it a lot in Farming Simulator, but I definitely used to talk about this when I did the Gold Rush videos, because this is kind of like my ultimate dream simulation type game. There's a few different types of games that I like to play, and as far as simulators are concerned, this is the one that I would like to see. I would like to see Farming Simulator combined with ETS2 and all of those other little ones just kind of added in for something extra. So you've got the game Cooking Simulator. You could chuck that one in as well, so you could go to a restaurant as a player and you could buy a meal. and then you have players, for the most part, I suspect that would be run by, that would just be an NPC thing, but you could have players, if they wanted to, go and get jobs working in the kitchens and earn themselves a bit of in-game money. Like, simulate the whole world. Train simulator. There is a train simulator. There's the flight simulators as well. We've got a map of Europe here, so we've got planes flying overhead carrying passengers. We've got trains going around as well. We could add all of that in. Now, the cooking simulator, why would you go other than doing a bit of role play? Now, role play does have its place in these games. A lot of people do like it, but what incentive would there be to go to a restaurant and have a fancy meal more than once or twice? Because eventually a lot of people get fed up with that kind of role play unless there's actually a purpose to it. So you go to the restaurant, you order your meal, you've got to wait for 20 minutes while the other player prepares your meal. It's fairly standard, or you could phone the order in. And then what's the benefit? Well, if you had a buff that was applied to your player character after you've gone out for a meal in a restaurant, and that buff provided you with 5% additional income on every transaction you make for the next 24 hours in-game. Game time doesn't follow real time hour for hour. I would say every 3 hours in real life is equivalent to one full game day, one full 24 hours. So, maybe something like that. Maybe 1 hour per day. Maybe 1 hour in real life is 24 hours in game. So, I don't know. So maybe a buff from a restaurant. If you go to eat out at a restaurant, it gives you basically 1 week's worth of additional income, 1 in-game week. So if you're running the game, if the game runs at roughly 1 hour per in-game day, then you go to a restaurant for a fancy meal, and it takes you 15-20 minutes to get the meal. That's fair chunk of 1 in-game day, but you get a buff that lasts for a week. I don't know. Obviously, this is just like suggestions. Such a thing doesn't exist. Such a thing is not likely to exist for another 20 or 30 years. I would be surprised. I'm definitely not going to say such a thing couldn't exist, because I've seen the way that games have developed over time, and there is no way that such a game will never exist. I know full well that such a game will exist. It's just a matter of when the game exists, not if it exists. So, when? I don't know. I don't know how long it's going to be before it turns up. Right, field 13 is up over there. That's our next target. Do we have a front weight with this one? No, we don't. So anyway, maybe we got a little bit of a cooking simulator that we could bring into it as well. That could be interesting. Could be another little bit that we can add into it. I don't know. Get into the comment section and talk about this. I would love to see what you have to say on it. Things have been rather hectic for me at home lately. And when I say rather hectic, I mean like really, really hectic. It's been insane busy. For all sorts of reasons, and so I haven't, occasionally I can get onto Discord and have a little chat. I have not been replying very much to comments on videos. I have been reading them though. I definitely do read them, and I will just put my little heart symbol on there just to acknowledge that I've read it, that I like your idea, that, I am still here somewhere. I'm just not able to do much more than that at the moment. So yeah, I do read this stuff. I do see what you put in there, and I do love to read your comments. So I'm very interested to hear what you think of this whole idea of the super simulator game. Would it be something you would play? Would you pay out your own real hard-earned money to play this big online game? Now, I've never made any secret of the fact that I'm fairly antisocial. I don't generally like to play online multiplayer games, I tend to avoid people. However, I feel that this game could provide a nice mixture of allowing you to choose between solo gameplay in a multiplayer world or actual multiplayer gameplay. So I feel that a good example of that is actually World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft allows you to choose between playing as a solo player. You can play World of Warcraft now. You didn't used to be able to, definitely not. But you can now. You can play as a solo player and you can experience most of the content. You can even go and do the dungeons and that with other players and not have to actually interact with them very much through the systems that they've got set up there. Although generally you don't need to go in and do that. There's a lot of gameplay in World of Warcraft, so you're able to go and play an online multiplayer game as a solo player, a single player, and not interact with other people. And I feel that is quite a good thing. I mean, there are plenty of people that say that this is not a good thing because it doesn't encourage the groups of people anymore, but I mean, I'd have to disagree with that. I think it encourages a wider player base. You've still got the groups of people there that you used to get, and yes, now players have the option. They don't have to group up with others if they don't want to, so they're not forced into joining a big guild. So yes, there is less social interaction in that game than there used to be when it was kind of, you didn't have any choice. If you wanted to be able to play the game, you had to join in with the social interaction, but that was always a bit of an issue for quite a chunk of the player base. Like, there's a lot of people that I know that have played Warcraft for a long time, and they never were really comfortable with the forced social interactions that they had to do. Some of them liked the social interaction, and some of them didn't want to do it all the time. It's kind of, I want to be able to do this today, but now today I don't want to do this. I want to be able to play the game, but there's so much of it at the moment that I can't do unless I join up with other players, which I really don't want to do. And it kind of put people off the game more than anything else. At least I've found in my personal experience talking to other people, talking to other players, it generally put them off rather than just encourage them to mix with people. They would just not play for a while. And I feel that the current kind of way that it works is really quite good. And I feel that a game on the kind of scale I'm talking about would definitely give you that option. Like, if I have started out and I'm here in this valley, or I'm anywhere that I really want to be in the whole of Europe, and I have built myself up a farm that has got a few thousand acres, I can employ hired help like I am right now. I can have NPCs helping me to do some of this work, or I could employ other players. I could get other players to come along and they could help me do some of this work. So I could pay you a wage, and it wouldn't necessarily be what I agree to pay you. If you're doing some work for me, we enter into a contract. So that's a mechanic that would be run by the game, and it basically says that you agree to come and work for me until such and such amount of time has elapsed. So you're going to work for me for one in-game week at the rate of X amount of euros per 24-hour period, and wages are paid at midnight every night or something like that. So then you start working for me, and I can terminate the contract at any point if I decide that I don't like what you've done or something like that. What I can't do is terminate the contract and stop you getting paid. You get paid for every hour that you've done. So you can't sort of exploit people. You can't say, oh yeah, and then terminate the contract and then not have to pay them any money. You pay them if they've done work for you. So the actual game itself will take care of that, so players aren't self-policing on it. I've seen so many people come up with ideas for games where players would police themselves on it because, oh, the community would take care of that. The community never does. It just turns into a massive, great big troll fest and destroys a game. There's no faster way of destroying a game than getting the players to completely self-regulate their own economy through agreeing to work for each other if you want something like that set up. Now, there are ways that it can work. I could say EVE Online does do that. It's completely self-policing. There's no real consequences, except that there are consequences for some things, and that game allows the player to earn their own money a lot more easily than other games might. So, kind of with the thing that I'm setting out right here, maybe you start out with nothing. So you could go and work for an NPC farmer somewhere and do contract work like we've started doing on here. You could go and work for an NPC driving a truck up and down the highways of Europe. Go and work in a kitchen and start saving up enough money to start building up your own business that you want to run in the game. And so you could go and do that, but if you wanted to go and work for another player, instead of me doing contracts and borrowing machinery and stuff, I go and work for another player and then they just pay me an hourly rate. So the base game hourly rate is decided, and it's a fraction more than you get for the base game NPC rate. So if you're working for an NPC, you get a little bit less than if you're working for another player. So there's not a big difference in it, but there is a difference. So if you were to go and do, say, 10 hours of gameplay working for a player versus 10 hours of gameplay working for an NPC, there would be, over 10 hours of gameplay, quite a noticeable difference between the two. And I feel that that would be quite important. I feel that that would be a very good, positive thing to have, because that is the kind of thing that is going to encourage players interacting with each other and encourage that kind of activity. However, what it's not going to do is it's not going to overly penalize the players that don't want to do something like that. Because there are going to be players that don't want to do that, to get involved in that level of socialization, and they're going to sort of... I know for a fact that players would start to feel like they were being penalized for not wanting to get involved in that level of socialization. And so sort of by doing it the way I've just described, so that you do get a reward for working for other players, but it's not huge. However, over a prolonged period, there is a noticeable difference. So, like, I could end up with, say, 5,000 euros more over that amount of time than the one that just worked for the NPCs. Now, it wouldn't be an ideal situation. Me being lucky enough to be able to work for another player means that I'm at a slight advantage, but, you know, I don't actually see that... Unfortunately, folks, that is all we have got time for today. A massive thank you to everybody who has earned their way into the Great Book of Names. To find out some more details about all the names coming past, please head into the description and click on the link to the Discord. It's a link to another video. The link is on the other video. Please also consider checking out the links there for Nitrado, who provide gaming servers for games like Farming Simulator, Minecraft, Ark, and several others. And there's also Fanatical, who will help support your gaming habit by providing you with cheap games and also giving me a small commission on anything that you buy using my link. If you've enjoyed this particular video, then please head down below and give us a like. And if you really enjoyed it, then please tell your friends all about me. Get them to come and watch as well. That would be awesome. And until next time, thank you very much for watching. This is Frithgar. Goodbye, and see you later.